Alrighty, alrighty. Welcome back to another thrilling installment of Mecha Mondays. I'm your intrepid narrator, Pilot Fragath. And today we're going to be reading the start of Book 3 of the Full Metal Panic series, entitled Trembling Into the Blue. And it's going to be a shorter one, because I am not all here. It's just going to be the first chapter of, I don't know, 5. We'll make up the time somewhere, hopefully, maybe. We'll find out. The future holds what the future holds. Let's see. Anything? I have not flipped through this to find out, but I'm not sure that there's any line art I need to get for here. There actually might be. Oh, I could get line art for the Tuatha de Danann. That probably would have been the thing to do, come to think of it. Well. There's some on the cover art there. It's a high performance, super secret, super duper sub. It's pretty big. Fairly confident it's larger than the usual sub. I think they give tech specs. But in case they don't, let me look them up. Where are you? I just had it here. That's mildly frustrating. Is that it? Nope. That's something else. I don't know what that is. It's not it, though. Ah, here we go. Ay, 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 ay. There we go. Mithril. Where's the Tuatha de Danann? There it is. Okay, how big are the... This wiki is singularly unhelpful. Note to self. Don't trust wikis. Oh, here's the actual tech manual. Is that for the anime or not? I can't tell. This doesn't tell me. Tech specs, there they are. Open image in new tab. Let's rock and or that's tiny. That is Italian. Huh. Interesting. Okay, give me a sec here. This is microscopic. That's really, really, really small. So I need to save the image and then open it again somewhere else. It's embarrassing. Live with embarrassment here. I wanted to get started right off the bat, but then I got sidetracked by this right now. Oh well. Okay. Again, I'm pretty sure they give the tech specs at some point. Here we go. That's... Okay. What, did it save as a WebP? No, that saved as a JPEG. Neat. Ah, there we go. Thank you, Windows Image Viewer, for breaking again. Windows. You are killing me. And not softly with his song, either. Just killing me. Plan B. I have a quick little magnification workaround. That will work. No, that's not it. There it is. There we go. Do it the hard way. Alright, that is... Okay, so it dislocates Yeesh. That's still really small. Am I reading that correctly? 30,000 tons? Jesus. It is big. I mean, it's like the size of an aircraft carrier. Give me a length. What's that say? Not as big as I thought. If I'm reading that correctly. Is that feet? 1,200 by... Oh no, that's personnel. That I can believe. Ugh. Sorry, I'm gonna get off that one. I'm not even gonna try. Suffice it to say, we'll hopefully get some tech specs this, if not this installment, then at least during this book at some point. Let's get rocking and a rolling here. Um, while I have any energy at all. Oh, did I? I sure did. I sure did. Nope, we're okay. Nice. Broke it again. Yeah. I'll have to actually switch from one to the other. That's okay. Cover art. Cover art questions. Nothing to worry about. My problem, not yours. All right. So that's enough completely mindless blather from me. Uh, yeah, let's get rolling. I should mention, um, at some point, I'll come up with a list if people are interested in video games that some of the stuff from Full Metal Panic has appeared in. It's appeared in a number of Super Robot Wars title. I believe there was a dedicated Full Metal Panic game on the PS2, but don't quote me on that. And I know they made an appearance in Another Century's episode R, which is like Super Robot Wars if it wasn't a tactical RPG. It was more of an action affair. Another Century's episode R is the fourth-ish entry in that series, and it is deeply flawed. I try to see the good in it, but there's no real getting around the fact that it has serious problems from like a basic construction standpoint. Oh, hey, we've got a bunch of the cast whose only real moveset is melee. What do you mean there's enemies that you can't actually punch in the face because you just bounce off because they're too big? Huh, that's an interesting design decision. There's others. There's others that are more fundamental. That one's pretty bad, though. Anyway, wow, this book's actually kind of long. This is, I think, the longest of the three in this one. Huh. That's a solid, 250 pages almost? Almost 300 pages. No, sorry, almost 225 pages. I know how to count. Sorry. Okay, let's get to it before I completely implode. It's been one of those weekends, which is probably why you're wondering, weren't you supposed to update the playlists? Yeah, I was. If my time was my own. Anyway, let's get rolling with the third Full Metal Panic book. Full Metal Panic, Book 3, Trembling Into the Blue, by Shouji Gatou. Prologue. Summer vacation was ending. 1 week from now, the summer vacation of her second year of high school would come to a close. Just thinking about it brought a sigh to Chidori Kaname's lips.
She was a girl with a slender face and well-sculpted features, but right now she was listless. She was in that time of year after you'd had all the usual summer fun and your wallet lay empty and bare. These were the dog days of summer. Kaname wasn't spending much time with friends either. One was busy with a part-time job at a toy store, one had a schedule packed with summer courses at prep school, one was going on a trip with her boyfriend, and here she was at school, melting in the heat. She was preparing for the Culture Festival, which was still over a month away from now. Dressed in her gym clothes, she was sprawled like a vagrant on a plastic tarp in an empty hallway. It was shady here and well ventilated, and the floor was cool. The student council room was a steam bath thanks to a broken air conditioner. Kaname was lying on her front, flipping through budget documents. What's the point? She wondered. Her eyes skimmed over various items. Imitation vellum, packing tape, lumber. Each one was attached to some barely meaningful value. What the heck am I doing here? Right now, Kyoko's working part-time and learning about the world. Mizuki is at prep school. Shiori is with her boyfriend in the Izu Highlands. Ugh, that tramp. I want some memories too, she lamented. Something fiery and passionate. Something so impactful that I'll remember this summer for as long as I live. And yet, summer was reaching its end, and nothing seemed to matter. Those were the thoughts that ran through her mind as she pored over page after page. Then suddenly she stopped. What the heck? What had caught her attention was the construction invoice for the venue entry gate. This exhibit, which was to be attached to the school's front gate, was given a new design every year and was one of their festival's most defining features. Last year, the art club had designed it with a peace motif, creating a 3D collage of doves taking flight. Typically, the construction costs ran about 70,000 or 80,000 yen, but this year's gate seemed excessive. Entry gate construction cost 1,476,000 yen. In American Monopoly dollars, that roughly translates to, Jesus, like $14,000, which is rather a lot. Um, it's actually, I think, less than that now. I can't remember. There have been some yen fluctuations in the last couple of years, and I haven't bothered to keep track. Anyway, it's expensive, is my point. It was written, nonchalantly, in a handwriting she recognized. His handwriting. What the hell are they building down there? Kaname felt her body animate with motivation born from rage. She jumped to her feet, flew like an arrow down the hall, and headed for the dojo in the courtyard. This area behind the dojo had become the de facto place to store materials for upcoming events. And indeed, when she arrived, she found several sweaty male students there, hard at work on building the gate. It would take a long time to finish, so the festival's executive committee had started on it over summer break. What in the... Seeing the entry gate in progress for the first time, her eyes widened in shock. It was less of a gate and more of a fortress, a watchtower, even. It had a massive metal frame that stood about 2 stories tall. It was covered here and there with lead-colored plates, heavy rivets, and long, narrow gun ports. It seemed designed for one sole purpose, to intimidate all who stood before it. The air reeked of burnt iron. All around her sat rows of metal plates, steel bars, electronics, and generators. Her ears were assaulted by the roars of electric drills and blowtorches. Okay, who's in charge? Get out here! Kaname commanded. The foreman peeked his head out from behind the steel gate. He was wearing dingy work gloves and a safety helmet with a face shield. Beneath it, she could see disheveled black hair and a sullen face marked by a tight frown. She recognized him immediately as Sagara Sosuke. Chidori, he blinked. What's the matter? Sosuke, she said. What the hell are you doing? Sosuke looked confused. I'm building the Culture Festival Gate. Just what it looks like. It so does not look like that. Explain this. He folded his arms calmly as he looked up at the entry gate in progress. I'd heard that the gate's motif last year was peace. I thought that this year's might be security. This gate will protect the public, serving a dual function in both observation and defense. You see similar structures in cities in Northern Ireland and Palestine. This isn't Northern Ireland or Palestine, Kaname wailed. It's Tokyo. Not an issue, he responded. We plan to add emplacements, searchlights, and loudspeakers by the time we're finished. It should hold out for quite some time against the kind of armed terrorist attack that might target a crowded festival. Sosuke had grown up on battlefields overseas, and he still didn't grasp how things worked here in a place as peaceful and safe as Japan. He couldn't get it through his head that the chance of terrorists attacking a school's culture festival were almost nil. We'll be more likely to see the police than terrorists, she howled. That's fine. Not even police equipment will be able to destroy this gate. That's not what I... Of course, its presence will disincline terrorists to interfere at all. Its greatest strength is as a deterrent. Sosuke put in thoughtfully. Festival visitors will rest easy when they see this gate. Rest easy? Kaname asked incredulously. The looming entry gate projected an aura of menace. No one was going to rest easy in its presence. And so you requested a 1.5 million yen for this monstrosity? Yes, he confirmed. I believe I can get an excellent price on Israeli-made composite armor. A French arms dealer acquaintance of mine told me that typically you'd have to spend over 5 million. Whap! Kaname slammed the wad of documents she was holding into Sosuke's head. Sosuke stared in silence. Where did that come from? You suck! Kaname yelled. Don't you know what our budget is? It's 1.5 million yen! You know what happens if we follow your crazy plan? We get the most surreal school festival ever. A festival with some looming fortress at the gate and no exhibits past it. He frowned. No armor plating! Use plywood! Yeesh! Kaname muttered, walking around the metal gate. She had to admit that the framework looked solid. They'd obviously been working hard on it, but why does he have to spend all his energy in the most pointless directions? After letting out her umpteenth sigh that day, she was just about to stroll through the gate itself when, No, Chidori, don't. Huh? Her right foot stepped on some kind of button. The bare nozzle just above her head began to tremble, and she was hit with a cloud of red particles. It was some kind of paint, spraying her from all sides. Soon she could see nothing but the crimson fog all around her. Too late, Sosuke whispered, dispersing the mist with the blueprints in his hand. As it cleared, they could see Kaname standing there, pitifully, as red as Pollock Row. She coughed. What did you... You accidentally triggered the marking system, Sosuke explained calmly. What is that? It reacts to outsiders trying to bring weapons into the festival, Sosuke explained. Even if they try to escape, the red paint will let them be identified at a glance. I see it still has room for improvement, but... You... Her entire body began to tremble, and her now crimson hair stood on end. Calm down, Chidori, Sosuke said soothingly. Don't you dare say that to me! She thought about charging at him and kicking him over, but before she could, Kaname felt a wave of something else sweep over her. She sniffled. It was a feeling of sorrow. A sorrow not quite deeper than the sea, but deeper than the school pool, at least. Her current pathetic state must have sparked a resurgence of the emptiness that had overtaken her earlier. Chidori? Sosuke peered, puzzled, into the face of the slumped-over, weeping Kaname. It's just too much, she bawled. There's no need to fear, he told her. The paint is non-toxic. That's not what I mean! Smack! Kaname ended up socking Sosuke one after all. He spun around like a top, slammed the frame of the fortress gate, and then slumped to the ground. I'm feeling sad, okay? She lamented, ignoring the sight of Sosuke lying limp on the ground. I just realized that my summer is going to end like this. That this is all there's going to be to my youth, to my second summer of high school, run ragged by an insensitive, war-obsessed freak, painted red like a Char custom, crying my eyes out under this metal monstrosity. Sosuke hummed to himself. You can't understand, can you? She sighed dolefully. Summer vacation is a special time for girls. Sosuke stood up abruptly. Is it? Yes! At least it is in manga and dramas and stuff. But it's fine. Never mind. She sniffed. I'll stop getting my hopes up for anything special to happen. I'll spend my last week until school starts just hanging around my house. At least then I won't have to look at your stupid face. Sosuke watched cautiously as Kaname wailed and moaned. At last he asked, You're saying you're free for a week, then? Yeah, I am. You got a problem with that? Hmm. Sosuke put a hand to his chin and fell into silent thought. He looked around at the other working students and whispered low enough so that they couldn't hear. In that case, would you like to go on a trip with me for a few days? It took her a few solid seconds just to say, Huh? Accompany me to a verdurous Sorry. Accompany me to a verdurous tropical island, he coaxed, away from the others. Are are you being serious? She asked. Kaname couldn't believe her ears. Sosuke had never invited her anywhere before. And the two of them, all alone, on a tropical island? Yes, he told her. Don't worry about the travel costs. I've been waiting for a chance to ask you for some time. A few days. In other words, they'd be staying overnight. Two young people, alone, on an overnight trip. The suddenness of the invitation had shaken her badly.
Now, I meant to swap covers at this point. Let's do that.
Ah, that one, not that one. No.
There we go. Much better.
Hey. Oh, sorry, that's her. Hey, are you, well, you don't like the idea? It's not that, but I believe you will find it very satisfying. Um, uh, Kaname hemmed and hawed and flapped her mouth. What do I do? What can I do? Sosuke's never been this aggressive before. I figured he'd never just ask me right out. I'm not emotionally prepared. But if I say no, I might not get another chance. Still, isn't there an order you're supposed to follow with this stuff? I mean, it's not like we've even, you know, but still. Her thoughts chased each other, around and around, and she could feel her face going pink. What do you think? He asked anxiously. Should I call it off? Kaname glanced at him sidelong for a minute. Then she whispered, You won't do anything weird? I won't do anything weird, he promised. It won't be dangerous? It won't be dangerous. There will be proper places to sleep? Correct. Hmm, that was right. Now that she thought about it, they could sleep in different rooms. And if she stayed home, she'd just be lazing around the apartment all day. Maybe it wasn't a bad thing to seek a little stimulation here at the end of her vacation. She hadn't done her summer homework, but who cared about that? That's right, she told herself. I did want to have a little adventure, at least. Kaname shrugged before answering him. Fine then, she stammered. If you insist, I guess I'll go along. All right, it's decided then, Sosuke agreed. I'll come fetch you in the morning 2 days from now. And with that, Sosuke went back to work. Unfortunately, the trip he proposed would turn out to contain more than a little adventure.
Oh, oh yes, it is this installment. Oh my God. Ugh. So
So a recurring thing in a bunch of Japanese media is that there is a token more American than American character. And we get to meet one today. Chapter 1 Toy Box 25 August, 23:45 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. USS Pasadena, near the Mariana Islands. Con, sonar. New contact on bearing 206. Designate combat number Sierra 15. When the sonar technician's report came in, the submarine's captain, Commander Killy B. Sailor, was just about to announce his first rest break in 6 hours. He'd wanted to go to the bathroom. He'd planned to give command to the officer of the deck, withdraw to his quarters, let fly at the urinal, then relax with a fine Cuban cigar. But a member of his crew had just announced contact with a new target, and that meant he was stuck there until they worked out what it was. Sailor's first order of business, then, was to declare loud enough for the whole control room to hear, "Shit!" His strong features drew into a scowl, and his broad shoulders tensed. The fierce-looking, quick-to-anger man was often described in whispers among his subordinates as looking like Schwarzenegger in a comedy. It was their 10th day out from Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The boat he commanded, the SSN USS Pasadena, was currently moving on a course west at 20 knots, 36 kilometers per hour, at a depth of 200 meters.
Captain, you may want to watch your language in this particular location,
cautioned Lieutenant Marcy Takanaka, the slender, attractive young man of Japanese descent who served as his executive officer.
Huh? Takanaka, are you stupid?
Sailor demanded sourly.
I said shit because I need to take a shit. Are you gonna nitpick everything your captain says now? Huh?
That is part of my job, Takanaka pointed out. The military gives me that right.
You can basically trace this entire character archetype back to Douglas MacArthur, for what it's worth. Uh, it is like every time you see this kind of a character, it's they're just channeling Dugout Doug. They are channeling that. Not necessarily inaccurately. It's the best slash worst part. Captain Sailor, yes, his name is Sailor. His name is literally Killy B. Sailor. You cannot make this up. Captain Sailor glared angrily into his XO's unflappable face.
Listen to you, all high and mighty. You Japanese are all the same, always sniggering and arguing with everything I say. This is why I can't stand you.
Ah, you've said at least 2 erroneous things just now, Takanaka said tactfully. First, I am a born and bred American. Second, I am not sniggering.
Shut up, you nuclear-powered idiot!
The captain finally lost his temper and grabbed his XO by the collar. Takanaka made a noise of distress.
After 2 years stuck with you, I've finally figured it out, he bellowed. Takanaka, you're a spy. A spy from our mortal enemy trying to rob my beloved Navy of its funding. A spy from the U.S. Air Force. Your constant nagging is the proof.
You know that's not true, he protested. Let me go, Captain.
The control room crew all shook their heads as if to say, "Here we go again." The captain and XO were constantly butting heads on everything from the dinner menu to the main reactor's output.
Con, sonar, requesting orders on Sierra 15.
His subordinate's reminder about the new contact snapped Captain Sailor back to reality.
Oh, right. No time for this now.
XO Takanaka gasped for breath as Captain Sailor tossed him aside, cut across the control room, and peered into the sonar shack.
Where is it? Is it far?
Yes, here's the signal. It's sporadic and weak, so we're not sure yet.
The ST gazed at the display with a scowl, messing with dials and switches around the green, waterfall-like display of sources of sounds in the area. A submarine had no windows. As they moved through the water, the only way to know what was around them was by sound. Another vessel could be dancing a jig inches in front of their nose, and as long as it was silent, they wouldn't even know it was there.
It's a twin screw, so it must be big, Captain Sailor predicted. Could be a Russian boomer, but the data doesn't match up. The Demon is way off for that, too.
A boomer, or SSBN, referred to a large nuclear missile-equipped submarine, designed to serve as the vanguard in an all-out nuclear war. Demon is all capital letters, so that must be a acronym for something that I don't know. DEMON? No idea.
Could it be a new Typhoon class, sir?
The ST asked. Not possible, Exo Takanaka chimed in. He had managed to catch his breath at some point and was poking his head into the sonar shack.
The only shipyard with the facilities to make a Typhoon class is...
Oh, gosh. Thank you, Russian names.
Severodvinsk. The only shipyard with the facilities to make a Typhoon class is in Severodvinsk. A new ship like that in the water would have been sighted by the Atlantic Fleet in the Barents Sea. Sosus would have picked it up as well, but Consubpac hadn't issued any warnings.
I know all that, you vertical launch system dunderhead,
Sailor interrupted with an insult that would make no sense to a layman. Takanaka closed his eyes. Why do you always have to... He stopped and cleared his throat.
Anyway, it might be better to assume it's an entirely new model.
Sailor put a hand to his chin. In other words, a massive submarine of unknown nationality and model was sailing along on the Pasadena's course. It didn't seem to be Russian, but that didn't mean it was friendly. To a submariner, all targets were hostile until proven otherwise.
Let's follow it a while, he decided. We'll get permission from command first. Take us up to periscope depth.
Sir, should I compose the message myself?
If you want.
Sailor grouched. But just then,
Wait, Captain, I just determined our distance,
the crewman working the close-range HF sonar whispered. His face was pale with fear.
It's close. It's big. Less than 600 yards and closing.
600 yards. Their distance was only about 5 times the length of their own vessel, which was close enough to make an impact likely. When the hell had it gotten that close? The captain goggled.
What's its depth?
500 feet. We're gonna hit it.
Before the report was even finished, Captain Sailor began to shout,
Right full rudder to 330. Make your depth 800. Maximum dive angle. Hurry!
Aye, sir. Make your course 330, depth 800, maximum dive angle.
The XO sprang back to the control room and gave detailed instructions to the dive station. Sorry. The helmsman and plainsman tensed up but did as they were told, both swiftly and carefully. Immediately the boat tilted, moving on a desperate course to avoid collision with the unknown vessel. The turbulence caused by the sudden change in direction banged loudly along the hull, and the bulkheads groaned from the stress.
Damn it, even the surfers in Honolulu can hear us,
Captain Sailor exploded.
Sonar, any sign of attack?
No, sir. We're too close to tell.
The sudden, violent movement had unleashed pandemonium in the Pasadena.
The other vessel is moving too. It's closing. Range 400. No, 300. 250. 200?
The ST screamed, gripping his headset. The approaching Sierra 15, the mysterious large submarine, was heading straight for them on an impact course.
Shit! Why won't it avoid us? Sailor screamed. They have to know we're here.
Captain, we can't dodge it!
A cold chill went up Sailor's spine. An underwater collision was the one nightmare every submariner shared. Submariner? I know I've asked that question before, and I cannot remember the answer. I think you can say it either way. I'm going to flip-flop repeatedly. So there. It wasn't like a car crash at an intersection. The crushing pressure that encased them at all times would exploit the slightest crack in their hull. If the hull ruptured and water came rushing in, there would be no way to stop it. Every scrap of the metal, all the oil, the nuclear fuel, and all 133 souls on board would be pulverized by the force and left scattered along the ocean floor.
Range 150. It's gonna hit. All stations brace for impact,
Sailor shouted into the microphone. Every man on the ship grabbed whatever was handy. Sturdy railings, console panels, backs of chairs. Some even grabbed pens or frying pans. One odd crewman, for whatever reason, grabbed his own balls through his pants. 1 second later, a powerful, destruction-sowing crash, the hideous shriek of twisting metal, did not come. The Pasadena continued its ear-grinding turn, but no more. They'd passed the expected point of collision, yet their world remained whole. The XO was the first to come to his senses. He ordered dive control to steady their course in depth. Immediately the ship went quiet. Looking sick to their stomachs, the crew timidly looked around them. The attack they'd expected had simply not come, and the 133 crew aboard all shared a common feeling, that unsteady calm that followed the end of a bout of hiccups.
Sonar, con, where's the Sierra 15?
Sailor asked in a whisper.
Sonar, the crewman reported. It disappeared.
What did you say?
It disappeared. Even our shortwave array, it doesn't pick up a trace.
The ST insisted, with a tremendous lack of confidence. A target as big as a Soviet Typhoon class, just gone in an instant? Half disbelieving, Sailor ordered an all stop. The ship continued to turn on its soundless inertia as they investigated the area carefully. But even then...
Nothing, the ST said helplessly. There's nothing here.
Not possible. Check the BQQ-5. I want a thorough test,
Sailor ordered, expecting an instrument malfunction.
Captain, I won't argue with your request, but I don't think it's a glitch,
Takanaka said hesitantly.
Huh? What makes you say that? Sailor demanded. Can you back it up?
Well, no, but I think what we just witnessed was the toy box.
The what?
There are rumors of a ghost submarine, unfathomably huge, Takanaka told him. It appears without a sound and disappears the same way, traveling at incredible speeds. Several of our allies have seen it, but none have successfully managed to track it.
The U.S. Navy's improved Los Angeles class of submarines, which included the Pasadena, were some of the world's most advanced. It was no exaggeration to say there was nothing they couldn't detect. For so many high-tech vessels to fail at tracking it...
That's stupid, Sailor scoffed. So you think what we just saw was this toy box thing?
Well, it just seems very likely,
Takanaka said defensively. Sailor fell into a sullen silence and tapped his temple with his index finger.
I don't like it. A ship of unknown nationality that not even we can track, just wandering around the ocean answering to God knows who. What if it's got nukes on it?
Well,
Takanaka hesitated for a moment.
if it wanted, it could wipe any city or base off the map in a second.
That's right, Sailor retorted, before anyone even knew it was there.
It could trigger a hot war between the U.S. and the USSR. Just who had made the thing? No, the more immediate question was, could they afford to simply leave it at large? Sailor stood up, as if coming to a decision.
Let's report it to command. Take us to periscope depth. In the meantime, there's something I need to do.
Where are you going?
The head,
He declared, passed command to Takanaka, and strode purposefully out of the control room.
Still,
Commander Sailor thought to himself as he walked down the narrow hallway,
if that thing we met really was this toy box, I'd love to get my hands on the captain. messing with me like this. I bet he's a real twisted psycho asshole. Just you wait, Toy Box Captain. Next chance I get, I'll make you wipe my ass, he growled. You'll see, and you'll do it with your tongue.
Same time frame, amphibious assault submarine Tuatha de Danann. What's the matter, Captain? Asked the XO of the Tuatha de Danann, Lieutenant Colonel Mardukas, as Tessa let out a sudden shiver. I just felt a sudden chill. I wonder if the air conditioning's malfunctioning. Do you think? He questioned. I feel fine. Maybe it's just my imagination. I'm sorry. Don't worry. I promise I'm not catching cold. She pasted on a smile, then looked back at the nautical chart projected on the nearby screen. The occupant of the captain's chair, Tessa, Colonel Talitha Testarossa, was a girl of just 16 years. She had large gray eyes, skin like fine china, and ash blonde hair, which was tied into a neat braid. The control room of her amphibious assault submarine, the Tuatha de Danann, was far larger than that of the Pasadena. It was more like the mission control you see in shuttle launch images, if smaller and with a lower ceiling. The lighting was dim enough that the blue and green display screens provided much of the room's illumination. Before her were 3 large screens and 15 seats. Each member of the crew there had one job which they specialized in. The helmsman and the plainsman, the navigator and the fire control officer, the engineer and special engineer, the officer of the deck, and so on. There were also seats for crew who oversaw ground operations when they were surfaced, but these were only filled when necessary. The next rooms over were the sonar shack, the ears of the sub, and the communications and electronic warfare room. They'd just gotten a report from the sonar shack. Con sonar. Our friend the Pasadena is heading for the surface. Yeah, rising. It's over the thermal layer. It doesn't seem to realize we were just hanging on its tail. Huh. Oh, okay. It's this guy. Con sonar. Our friend the Pasadena is heading for the surface. Yeah, rising. It's over the thermal layer. It doesn't seem to realize we were hanging on its tail. Ha! The sonar technician, Sergeant Degirani, spoke the words with a strange rhythm. Mardukas furrowed his brow, but said nothing. He held back the urge to rebuke him, and nudged his glasses back up on his nose. That's right. This isn't the same military that I came out of, he reminded himself. Steady on, steady on. Tessa, for her part, showed no signs of displeasure with the ST's attitude and made a flick with her stylus. The display of detailed information about the Pasadena was minimized and banished to a corner of the large front screen. Yes, well done, she said absently. I feel we played a rather mean prank on our friend, the Pasadena. I hope they aren't too upset with us. That's a rather tall order. If it were me, I'd take it as a bad blow to my pride, Mardukas responded. Lieutenant Colonel Richard Mardukas was a skinny man in his mid-40s, with thinning hair that he kept hidden beneath a baseball-style cap he'd kept from his British Navy days. Stitched to the indigo cap were the words S-87 HMS Turbulent. The Turbulent was the last submarine he'd commanded, but he couldn't have been a less likely fit for the name. His pale skin and dowdy, silver-rimmed glasses put him as far from the archetypical Navy man as you could get. He'd look more at home packed into a commuter train at rush hour than standing on a submarine's bridge. Pride? Do you really think so? Tessa asked. Yes. But there's nothing to be done about it, she lamented. We don't have anyone else to practice on. Also true, Mardukas admitted. The military organization to which this vessel belonged, Mithril, had 4 battle groups across the world. Hers, the Tuatha de Danann, oversaw operations in the West Pacific, but they only had the one submarine under their command. Given no one else to practice with day in and day out, the de Danann had to test approaches, attacks, tracking, and evasion on the submarines of various militaries' navies. Generally, they stuck to clandestine approaches that left their subjects' captains none the wiser. But now and then, as in this case, it was necessary to get a little rough. Of course, she knew this couldn't be any fun for their unwitting and unwilling practice partners.
But it wasn't for naught, Mardukas pointed out. We now know to adjust our expectations of silence during normal propulsion.
True. I thought they wouldn't hear us for another 10 seconds, Tessa whispered, looking up at the ceiling. Her boat hadn't seen many days at sea. It had been through live combat, but there were still countless things about it to be tested and fine-tuned. They had no choice but to impose on others if they wanted to get the de Danann working its very best. Incidentally, Tuatha de Danann was both the name of the vessel and the name of their battle group. Since they were an extremely small-scale operation, it was appropriate to treat them as equivalent. That made Tessa both captain and commander-in-chief. This concentration of power was convenient in operations where precision and speed were required. At any rate, the test had concluded successfully, and the Pasadena had departed. Their brief 3-day voyage was over, and it was time to return to their base on Merida Island. Well, perhaps we should head home as well, she sighed. EMFC passive, resume normal propulsion, all ahead standard. It was an awfully gentle voice for someone commanding the world's largest high-tech submarine, but that was unavoidable. Mardukas repeated the officer's order. Aye, Captain. EMFC passive. Oh, sorry.
Aye, Captain. EMFC passive.
EMFC station, passive mode, aye. Engaging turbulence control. 15 seconds. 10. 5. All devices, phase adjustment complete.
Normal propulsion contact,
Mardukas continued. Maneuvering. Normal propulsion, aye. Engine 1 ready. Engine 2 ready. Normal propulsion, contact.
all ahead standard,
He finished. All ahead standard, aye. As the head of each station reported, the de Danann's twin variable pitch screws began to spin. These propellers, made of dozens of layers of shape memory alloy, change. And now, of course, I have the shape memory alloy track from Armored Core 1, which is your mech lab, stuck in my head, and it will not leave. It will not leave now. That is like ingrained on my DNA. Sorry. These propellers, made of dozens of layers of shape memory alloy, changed shape like living things and were the most quiet and efficient propulsion there was. The over 30,000-ton vessel smoothly began to move forward. The floor vibrated just a little, but made almost no sound.
Captain, current speed 30 knots.
Right, this should do it. Sonar, keep an ear on bearing 050. There are Japanese fishing boats in that area. Right. Why? The ST asked. You sometimes see accidents with snagged fishing nets. It wouldn't harm us, but we'd capsize them. It was true. It was the kind of accident even a veteran captain could cause, though officially such incidents were not acknowledged by any country's militaries. Ah, I see. Roger, the ST responded easily enough. Mardukas felt deeply touched as he listened to the exchange and noted how smoothly things were running. When the de Danann had first set out, most of her crew had behaved with hostility to Talitha Testarossa. It was understandable. What kind of military organization would accept a girl who couldn't even legally drink as their captain? Moreover, the crew had been chosen from all over the world to staff the de Danann and were leading professionals in their fields, if also eccentric enough to have been kicked out of proper armed forces. Their pride in their work was not inconsiderable. Mardukas remembered the first time he'd brought her out in front of the crew.
I am your executive officer, he'd said. This girl here is the captain.
But it was as if he'd told them,
The Pope has expatriated to China.
But then, after various twists and turns, the crew's opinions about her did a complete 180. The Sunan incident 4 months ago had been particularly decisive. Her leadership then had been nothing short of breathtaking. While depth charges rained down from the North Korean patrol boats, she'd gotten that massive sub moving like a jet fighter to break through their blockade. As its designer, Talitha Testarossa had an intimate knowledge of the vessel as well as a unique ability to unleash its full potential. Even Mardukas, a submariner with 25 years of experience, was impressed by her skill and daring. Now that she had proven herself, a unique atmosphere had come over the Danann. Normal submarines, crewed by nothing but men, naturally formed into a patriarchal society. The captain was the father and the absolute authority. The Danann was more like a matriarchy, with Tessa as chief. The men found fulfillment in serving and protecting her, and the fact that their princess possessed seemingly divine wisdom and beauty just made it better. It was a vessel truly worthy of the name Tuatha de Danann, tribe of the goddess Danu, the name of the pantheon in Celtic mythology.
The EMFC is working well. At this rate, we should return to base by noon,
Mardukas said after checking the data on his personal display.
Yes, I'm glad. Then we can hold the birthday party. Also, I expect a guest on the island tomorrow.
Tessa looked very pleased by the idea.
What do you mean?
Mardukas asked.
Chidori Kaname-san,
Tessa clarified.
I told Sergeant Sagara to bring her to Merida Island when it was convenient. I've hardly talked to her since the Behemoth incident.
I see. Mardukas didn't miss the note of glee in her tone when mentioning Sergeant Sagara. Since the battle with the giant arm slave 2 months ago, Captain Testarossa had been frequently mentioning the young sergeant's name, though she didn't likely realize it herself. Mardukas didn't know much about Sagara Sosuke, but he'd heard that he was a sober and skilled NCO. He knew that he was an elite member of their ground forces special response team and that he was currently assigned to a mission in Tokyo. He was also the only one who could pilot the Danann's unique AS, the Arbalest. It occurred to Mardukas that he should probably talk to this Sagara personally and get a read on him soon. Depending on what he saw, he might need to get him away from her, perhaps via reassignment. It wasn't that he was trying to play her father, but it was his job as XO to keep an eye out for unsavory activities. He'd already confiscated a small mountain of pictures of Captain Testarossa from various members of the crew and ground forces. He was hesitant to burn them, so he'd left them with Captain Goldberry, the onboard doctor. They'd been traveling at normal propulsion for about an hour when the Danann's mother AI let out a small alarm, calling for the captain's attention.
Captain, tasking message on channel E2. Now receiving.
The AI's feminine voice said.
Understood, Tessa answered. When you're finished, send it to me.
Aye, ma'am. ELF communications were the only way to communicate with a sub on a dive, and these telegrams took time to receive. Therefore, it was 5 minutes before the message could finally be displayed on the captain's screen. Tessa read it and let out a small sigh.
Mardukas-san, she said,
Yes, Captain?
we can't return to the base just yet. The party is likely cancelled as well. We need to turn south instead,
she said, and then handed the telegram she'd just received to Mardukas. The message, already decrypted, contained a brief order issued by the head of Mithril's operations division. Priority Order 98H088-0031 260115Z from United Operations Division Headquarters, Operations Department Head Admiral Jerome Borda. To TDD-1, Tuatha de Danann. Tuatha de Danann, sorry. A. Situation B26C in progress at Sector L6-CW. B. Tuatha de Danann to cancel current mission. Board ground force, arrive at 0930 North, 13400 East, and stand by. C. Rendezvous with ground forces permitted at C north of 1700 M. D. Ground force scale and type should be determined by necessities of situation B26C. E. ROE are as in peacetime until instructed otherwise. Message ends.
Really, the Admiral is such a slave driver.
The sector in question is the Perio Archipelago, I believe,
Mardukas said without needing to open a nautical chart. Perio was a nation of beautiful coral reef islands far to the south of their current location. It had gained independence just a few years ago, and while it styled itself a republic, in practice it was a protectorate of the United States. It was a minor nation with a population of just under 20,000, which received most of its economy from tourism. So the local equivalent of American Samoa, or similar. Mardukas couldn't recall what kind of situation B-26C referred to off the top of his head. Mithril had at least 100 hypothetical military crisis scenarios, and while he knew most of the common ones, he couldn't possibly memorize them all. Apparently, the same did not apply to Tessa, though. Before Mardukas could open the data file to check, she whispered, "It means that chemical weapons are involved, that a storage facility has been attacked and occupied by an armed force of some kind." Chemical weapons. Sarin, tabun, VX gas, and other weapons of mass killing. Even after achieving independence, the Republic of Perio still played host to a few American bases. Mardukas remembered reading somewhere that this included a facility for disassembling and disposal of special warheads, a poison gas storehouse in the middle of a tropical paradise in tourist season, occupied by terrorists. "It's a terrifying thought," he concluded, "if that facility goes up." "Yes," she agreed, "all 20,000 people living in Perio and tens of thousands of tourists would suffer, and the entire nation could even be wiped off the map." "But the United States military will surely attempt a counterinsurgency," Mardukas predicted. "They have people always ready for this kind of thing, and if they send their AS-equipped special forces, they should take it back easily enough." "I hope you're right, but if something goes wrong—" Tessa trailed off and glared at the screen ahead of her. "Then we'll need to act back into the fray." August 26, 1330 hours, Japan Standard Time. Over Pacific Ocean, 200 kilometers southwest of Iwo Jima. Sagara Sosuke was feeling uneasy. He was en route to Merida Island, Mithril's base in the West Pacific, which lay 1,500 kilometers south of Tokyo. The twin-engine turboprop aircraft vibrated in flight about 1,000 meters over the ocean, and powerful sunlight streamed through the windows into the cabin where he was sitting. Chidori Kaname was seated across from him, and the backlighting made it impossible for him to read her expression. She seemed to be upset, but he couldn't begin to guess why. "It's a total mystery," he thought. When he'd gone to her apartment that morning, she'd been in high spirits, greeting him with a beaming smile and a travel bag full of clothes. "Okay, let's get rolling," she'd said cheerfully. When he'd led her to Chofu Airport and explained that they'd be taking a chartered Cessna, she'd begun to marvel, saying things like, "Sosuke, are you super rich?" in open astonishment. Then, as the Cessna took off for Hachijojima, she'd seemed beside herself with joy. He continued to receive comments like, "I underestimated you," and "I didn't know you were so resourceful," as she gazed out, enraptured, at the scenery below. It was after arriving in Hachijojima, when they'd changed to the twin-engine plane to Mithril, that the problems had started. Kaname had apparently thought they would be staying, and she'd been stunned when he'd told her they were just changing planes. At last, deciding it would be all right to tell her their destination, he'd said, "We're going to Mithril's West Pacific base. Colonel Testarossa wants to see you." For some reason, she'd fallen silent after that. After a clipped response, "Fine then," she hadn't said another word for 4 hours. Strange. Have I overlooked something very important? Sosuke had been working the problem over in his mind all this time, and he couldn't figure it out. Once they passed 20 degrees north latitude, he cleared his throat and addressed her. "Chidori." "Yes? Can I help you, Sergeant Sagara?" There it was, all of a sudden. An inscrutable malice came through in her words.
If I've upset you somehow, please tell me. I'll do anything I can to make it right.
Oh, well, actually, Kaname gave him the most sarcastic smile she could manage. My problems are things you couldn't possibly solve, so I should probably keep them to myself. She left no room for discussion. He'd been thinking of taking Kaname somewhere after her business with Colonel Talitha Testarossa was finished, but at this rate it seemed he'd have to give up on that plan. As if to punctuate the fact that they had nothing further to talk about, Kaname turned and looked out the window. Her earring caught the light. Wait, does she usually wear earrings? He realized. Just then, the co-pilot poked his head into the cabin. Sergeant Sagara, message from Merida Island. It's for you.
I'm on my way. Chidori, I'll be stepping away for a minute.
Kaname didn't respond. With a grimace, Sosuke lowered his head and entered the cockpit, and took the headset from the co-pilot.
Sagara here.
Hey, it's me!
Hey, it's me.
It was a fine baritone voice, which we don't make him sound like at all, with a slight note of jocularity. Sosuke's comrade, Colonel Sergeant Kurtz Weber. I see Kurtz, I think Colonel. I'm sorry. I've seen Apocalypse Now a few times. I think it's spelled differently. I don't remember how it's spelled in the movie, actually. It's no T on this one. Sergeant Kurtz Weber.
Kurtz, Sosuke acknowledged him. What is it?
We got a standby B order. It includes you. We need to board the Danann and en route ASAP. We'll be taking a helicopter there in a few minutes.
Sosuke wanted to let out a groan. A standby order, now of all times? Ground soldiers like him and Kurtz weren't required to be on the amphibious assault submarine, the Tuatha de Danann, at all times. They remained on land for daily training and other missions, and they were only called to board and stand by when absolutely needed. There were a multitude of things that could happen after they came aboard. Sometimes they ended up seeing combat, sometimes they waited for days and nothing happened. Since they'd gotten the order to board the Danann on maneuvers, Kurtz and the others on Merida Island would be taking helicopters to the rendezvous. But Sosuke was still en route from Tokyo. There was no way he'd be able to join them on their flight.
They can only wait 20 minutes tops, Kurtz told him. Can you make it?
Not a chance, Sosuke told him grimly. We're at least 2 hours from Merida.
Then you'll have to take that way. Don't catch cold. Of course, people like you never do.
Kurtz laughed with a trace of mockery, referring to the old Japanese adage that idiots don't catch colds.
That isn't the problem, Sosuke said. It's Kaname. What should I do with her?
Ah, that's right. Since Tessa's underwater.
Should I have Kaname wait on Merida Island or send her back?
Just saying the words out loud brought a cold sweat to Sosuke's forehead. Kaname was already in a bad mood, and now he'd have to say either,
"Something came up, please kill time at the base," or "Sorry, but please go back to Tokyo."
how was he going to do it? He was the one who'd invited her here.
Are you absolutely certain you need me on the board?
I think they added "the" for no.
Are you absolutely certain you need me on board? He asked anxiously. I'm sure there are others who can take my place. If you just let me talk to the colonel.
Hang on a second. Huh? Oh, it's Big Sis.
He could hear Kurtz holding a muttered conversation on the other end of the radio. Sosuke waited patiently, and soon Kurtz returned.
Right. Got word about that at just the right time. Apparently, Tessa says, if Kaname-san wants to come, bring her on board. I say, the civilian gets to join us. Just bring her along.
You expect me to put Kaname through that?
The method for boarding the Danann underwater was slightly unusual.
She's tough, Kurtz told him. She can handle it.
Of course, there would be a lot to worry about with bringing her onto a warship on maneuvers. Then again, the cutting-edge Danann was also one of the safest places in the world. Maybe it wasn't worth worrying about.
I'll bring her then,
Sosuke responded, and after a few more formalities, he ended the call. Back in the cabin, Kaname was stewing. 2 days ago, when Sosuke had invited her, she'd started out hesitant. Maybe we shouldn't be alone together, she'd thought. Not that she thought he'd try anything, but going on a trip together still felt like some kind of invisible line was being crossed. It wasn't just a trip. For a normal 16-year-old girl, an overnight stay with a boy was a life-changing experience. It wasn't like going to an amusement park on a Sunday. And when that boy was Sosuke, that brought up other that brought up other important unresolved issues. The relationship they had, the way she scolded him every day at school, acted like his big sister, looked after him because no one else would. She couldn't help but feel this trip would change that. Getting closer to him might throw them out of the comfortable rhythm they'd established. Those thoughts jumbled together inside of her and made her heart pound in her chest. Maybe I should call it off, she'd thought again and again. But when the night before arrived, she'd had a change of heart. She shoved a few changes of clothes and her bath set in her bag, and as she went about the work, she even realized she was humming. Well, it'll go how it goes, she told herself. What's the worst that could happen? And so she'd found herself looking forward to the trip. Don't worry so much. Just enjoy your time with him. Eat all kinds of delicious things. Go with the flow. And if he asks for more, what would I do then? No, I'm not that easy. Oh, but if the mood was right. No, I couldn't. Oh, but could I? Hee 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 hee. Such were the thoughts that consumed her. The feeling had carried over to that morning, too, and continued as they were heading out. Then, after so much wrestling with complicated, unfamiliar feelings, after so many emotional ups and downs, they'd arrived on Hachijojima. And he'd told her, "We're going to meet Colonel Testarossa." And she'd been hit by an extreme feeling of deflation. Oh, so that's what it was, she realized. It's just another Mithril mission. We're going to some weird island because your dearest darling asked you to pack me up and take me there. I can't believe I spent 2 days worrying and wondering and letting my emotions go crazy. I'm so stupid. She'd felt about 2 inches tall. In the cockpit, Sosuke was talking to someone on the radio. The plane was noisy, and they were speaking rapidly in English, so she couldn't tell what they were saying. When he finally returned to the cabin and sat down, his face was ashen. What is it? She asked brusquely. With a timid glance at her, he said, There's been a change of plans. I see, Kaname replied stonily. The colonel has urgent business, he told her, and she's not on Merida Island. And? If it's all right with you, I'd like to take you along to our vessel. Kaname pondered briefly. Tessa had a ship, right? She felt like she'd heard about this at some point. The super secret high-tech mercenary squad, Mithril, that Sosuke was involved with, had some kind of some kind of boat thing, and Tessa was the captain of it, or something. It was true that she'd felt she needed to talk to Tessa for a while. The girl seemed to know something about the whole mystery surrounding Kaname, and yet they'd only spoken together a few times over the phone since the chaos in Ariake. Okay, fine. Whatever, Kaname responded indifferently. I appreciate it. Please stand by, Sosuke said, then returned to the cockpit. For a little while after that, Sosuke came and went occasionally between the cockpit and the cabin. He would retrieve a large bag from the cabin shelf, fiddle with the radio in the cockpit, discuss something with the pilot. About 2 hours after the decision to change destination, Sosuke asked her, Did you bring the bathing suit? Huh? Where did that come from? Kaname wondered. Are we going to the island after all? Well, I brought one, sure. Put it on, he told her. You can use the back of the cabin. Where's this coming from? She asked. Hey! Hurry, there's not much time. Sosuke headed back to the cockpit, seemingly strangely flustered about something. With no choice but to do as she was told, Kaname went to the bathroom in the back of the cabin and swiftly changed into her swimsuit. It was a one-piece with orange print. She'd also brought a white bikini, but she'd lost any desire to wear it in front of Sosuke. She came back to the cabin with a towel over her shoulders and found Sosuke there in a wetsuit. It looked like he was wearing it over his clothes. She stared for a second. What's going on? I'm sorry, he apologized. We didn't have a wetsuit in your size. That's not what I... Put your luggage in this bag, please. All of it. He quickly shoved an olive-colored bag at Kaname. Once you've packed it in, zip it up. It's double-layered, so make sure you get both. You should put that towel inside as well, and tie back your hair if you can. Kaname remained annoyed. Hey, would you just tell me... Sarge, the pilot called, and Sosuke ended up having to return to the cockpit. Confused, Kaname packed her things into the olive-colored bag. Finished? Sosuke returned right away. Yeah, she said, but why did you make me do that? The bag is waterproof and impact resistant. With that non-answer given, Sosuke opened another bag and swiftly put on its contents. This was a strangely shaped rucksack attached to a rigging of sturdy-looking belts and metal buckles. Hey, is that... Put this on, he ordered. Hurry. No, I'll put it on. We don't have time. Hey! Kaname broke off and suddenly let out a yelp. What are you doing? She could only stand there in shock as Sosuke began fastening the belts and buckles around her body. His rubber-gloved hands ran all over her arms and shoulders, legs, and backside. Turning scarlet, Kaname tried to object, but... Sarge, the pilot called, 1 minute left. Got it. We're running low on fuel, so we won't get a second... I know, Sosuke shouted back. Don't worry. Intimidated by the strange tension in their interaction, Kaname found her objections dying in her throat. She winced in pain as Sosuke pulled at the buckles and belts he'd secured around her, testing their strength. Hey, what are we... 30 seconds! The pilot cried. Thanks a lot, Sosuke responded. See you another time. Huh? Kaname said. What do you mean, another time? Hey, wait! Sosuke got around behind her and attached his buckles to hers with a clink. They were latched together now, with him standing right behind her, arms linked under hers. What? Hey! She tried again. What's going on? Sosuke, who was bearing all the equipment on his shoulders, including the bag with their luggage inside, strode quickly to the right side of the cabin, as if carrying her. Huh? Huh? The co-pilot, standing next to the hatch, cranked a lever in the wall. The sliding-style door flew open, and they were abruptly buffeted by the wind from outside. Kaname shrieked. Suddenly, the roar of the engine was much louder, and a cold gale was roaring around her. She could see where the sky met the sea, all in blue. It spanned out in its vastness, far below. Ocean, as far as the eye could see. Tokyo Tower felt like nothing compared to the height they were at now. Sosuke tossed a smoking marker out the hatch and watched the direction of the wind outside. Then he gave the co-pilot a thumbs up, and he patted Kaname on the shoulder. Right! Let's go, Chidori! Let's go, my butt! She yelled back. We're still flying! We are, he agreed. Kaname began to flail, struggling to get back into place, but because she was latched to Sosuke, it was hard for her to get traction. What are you doing? Hey, don't tell me we're about to jump! Affirmative. With a shout, Sosuke propelled himself out of the plane, taking Kaname along with him. The floor vanished from below her feet, and a feeling surged over her, like her guts floating up inside her body. She could tell that she was screaming, but the rushing wind around her drowned her voice out, so that she could barely even hear it. In the corner of her eye, she could see the turboprop plane receding. Everything was blue. The crystal clear sky, the sparkling ocean, that and the sun were all that was left in existence. Ah, Kaname said tremulously. She and he, alone in that cerulean world. Just the two of them, together. How wonderful it would be, if not for the force dragging them down. In a corner of her mind, she began to think she could excuse almost everything he'd put her through up until now. Yes, even the fact that he'd dragged her out on his suicide plunge. But just as that realization occurred, she felt a hard impact, and her body jerked upward. No, in fact, their parachute had opened. The world of pure blue vanished as an olive-green parachute came to comprise most of the view above her. The wind rushing past her near-naked body died to a gentle breeze that rustled her hair. Dangling from the parachute, they continued their downward drift. "We're going to die," Kaname whispered, as she gazed down at the ocean below. There was no sign of the ship Sosuke had talked about. They were approaching the surface of the water now.
Okay, Chidori, Sosuke told her. I'll be cutting the parachute just before we hit the water. Take a deep breath.
"Why?" she found it in herself to ask.
So that we won't drown, he said. 3, 2.
They had already fallen the height of a skyscraper. She could make out the waves in detail now.
Cutting now.
Holding back the urge to cry, Kaname filled her lungs with air. The parachute flew free. They stiffened and plunged toward the ocean. She felt a final impact, and her body was engulfed in seawater and foam. The water wasn't as cold as she'd prepared herself for. August 26, 0628 hours, Greenwich Mean Time. Tuatha de Danann, 30-meter depth, West Pacific Ocean.
Con, sonar, human-sized objects hitting the water on bearing 317, distance about 500 yards,
The sonar technician told Tessa.
Right, Tessa responded. Just about as planned, then. Maintain course, decrease speed to 3 knots.
Speed 3 knots. Aye, ma'am.
The slow-moving submarine slowed down even further. They were preparing to pick up Sosuke and Kaname, who'd just fallen into the sea.
Send the turtle for them, Tessa ordered. Goddard-san, you have control.
Aye, ma'am. Launching Turtle 1, starboard.
The officer of the deck grabbed the stick and pressed a button. The Turtle was a kind of wire-controlled mini USV they kept on board. It was about the size and shape of a sea turtle, hence the name, and moved through the water with fins based on AS technology while wielding a transceiver and optical sensors. It was, in effect, a swimming periscope, and it allowed the Danann to safely search the ocean's surface. The OOD swam the turtle towards Sosuke and Kaname's location. Once it reached them, they'd put on diving gear and grab hold of it, and it would reel them down to where the submarine was. It would then bring them alongside one of the hatches, through which they'd enter an airlock and finally come aboard. It was a process that not only Sosuke but other members of the ground forces had undergone countless times, as surfacing the whole boat to pick up 1 or 2 people was both inefficient and risky. The sub had already surfaced once an hour earlier to take the rest of the ground team with their helicopters on board. The ST spoke again, suddenly nervous.
Oh, sonar technician, hello. Sonar, I'm getting hard splashing on the surface of the water.
What do you mean?
They might be drowning. I'm hearing repeated impacts and screaming. I don't like the sound of it.
Abruptly, everyone in the control room grew tense. It wasn't uncommon, during a water landing, to see someone get tangled in a wet parachute and drown. Could Sosuke and Kaname have...
We need to take action. Get a diver on standby at hatch 12. Have them ready to go at...
Wait a minute. I'm getting shouting. It's really loud. It's Japanese, I think? I'll put it through. You tell me.
The ST switched the channel input to play the sound over the control room speakers. Tessa could indeed hear the kicking and struggling in the water, as well as screaming voices. She gulped and listened carefully to what was being said. The statements captured by the de Danann's high-performance sonar were as follows.
Stop it, Chidori!
Shut up! You deserve to drown, you jerk!
What? You're strangling me?
I sure am. Have you ever thought about how I feel? You callous jerk! You monster! I hate you!
Mardukas, standing very still beside her, looked over at Tessa as if requesting her judgment. He didn't know Japanese, so the conversation was beyond him. The same went for the rest of the crew. They were all turned in their seats, gazing at Tessa, who was listening carefully. They all had the same question written on their faces. Why isn't the captain helping them?
Captain?
Someone ventured. At last, Tessa spoke sullenly.
They're fine.
She said, then slouched back into her chair. Optical antenna, I will write it out for you. It is Tuatha de Dat. Is it 2 A's? Or is it 2 N's? I might have misspelled it in the stream description. One sec. They make me say it like 60 times at the beginning of the book. No, that's not it. That's too far. That's too far. There we go. Yes, it's 2 A's. There we go. Which looks like it's pronounced Tuatha de Danann, or something. It's like the TH is sort of silent. It's like I forget the specific name of it's a glottal thing. So it's like Tuatha de Danann. Or just Tuatha de Danann. I did look that up. And if somebody knows better than I do, great. Or better than the person that I got the pronunciation from, even better. Anyway. After much Sturm und Drang, Kaname finally put on the unfamiliar diving gear, grabbed onto the strange robot turtle, and dove into the water with Sosuke. Below the water, a massive submarine, the Tuatha de Danann. It was literally a line away, and I could have not spent the time looking for it, but it's fine. Was waiting. Kaname had never seen anything like it. It had smooth aerodynamic lines. What she could make out in the diffused light from the water's surface suggested a silhouette not unlike a throwing knife. Then again, its size made it hard to say just what shape it really was. The closer they got, the more overawed she became by its scale. It looked as big as a Shinjuku skyscraper, or perhaps, more pointedly, like a black mountain lying on its side. Guided by Sosuke, Kaname entered a small hatch at about the middle of the boat. They waited in a narrow cylindrical airlock while the water pumped out, and when it was finally done, she could at last tear herself free of the vile rubber mouthpiece of her breathing apparatus.
Ugh, you never said it was a submarine,
Kaname said with a cough, flexing her fingers open and shut. She didn't know why, but her fingertips were tingling.
You've been told that several times, Sosuke protested. You've been on board it once before as well.
Huh?
It's true, he insisted. The conditions were more chaotic, of course. You were unconscious at the time.
Kaname responded to that with a silent glare. They opened a hatch in the floor and climbed down a ladder to the deck below. Waiting for them in the passageway was a girl with ash blonde hair, dressed in a khaki-colored uniform.
Tessa?
Kaname asked cautiously.
Yes, it has been a while, hasn't it?
Tessa smiled gently and inclined her head.
Welcome, Chidori Kaname-san. You have my permission to board.
And so, for the second time, Kaname boarded the amphibious assault submarine, the Tuatha de Danann. August 26, 1625 hours, Perio Standard Time. Daub Island, Republic of Perio, Western Pacific Ocean. U.S. Armed Forces Chemical Munitions Disposal Facility. The explosion of an attack helicopter bathed the coral reefs in a red glow. Wreathed in flame against the night sky, it wobbled like a slowing top, plunged, then broke into pieces against the ocean's surface. Machine guns roared, bullets flew back and forth, patrol boats burned, and black smoke rose. On the beach of this battle-stricken island sat a lone indigo arms slave, the M06-A3 Dark Bushnell, as opposed to the vanilla Bushnell, I guess. It was a top-of-the-line machine that belonged to the U.S. Navy's Special Operations Force, the SEALs. Or rather, it had been. The 8-meter-tall humanoid weapon had been reduced to a smoking husk, its arms and legs bent at grotesque angles. Strewn around it were clumps of metal guts and sprays of high macromolecular gel fluid. Beyond the violent sounds of explosions and shelling came the roars and shouts of the soldiers of the counterinsurgency. These had quickly changed into screams of despair.
Echo 84, we're hit! Mayday! Mayday! My leg's out! Need assistance! That red bastard! He killed Bob! Destroyed. Repeat, November 1 destroyed. The lieutenant is dead. Command transferring to November 3. Evacuate. We gotta get out of here. Help me! Someone help! Help!
Staff Sergeant Ed Olmos could hear his allies' cries through the transceiver, but had no time to listen to them. The AS he was piloting, also an M6A3, was running across the concrete-hardened shoreline. He had no allies nearby. He was the last of his 3-machine team. The operators of the other 2 had been elites who had undergone strict training and boasted skills at the top of their class. And yet, they had been killed effortlessly by a single AS, by that unidentified red AS.
No way. This can't be happening,
he muttered.
Shit.
Inside the cockpit, Olmos had gone pale. He couldn't stop sweating. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. His dark eyes frantically scanned for the enemy.
Where is he? Where is he?
The sensors of the M6A3 Dark Bushnell had completely lost track of the enemy machine. All they could pick up was the thick black smoke, the remains of his allies, and the collapsing buildings around him.
Where is he? Where is that red?
Olmos's racing thoughts stopped as the smoke in front of him swirled. Driven by long-honed instinct, Olmos dove his machine to the side. A rocket grazed his left flank and exploded behind him. Unfazed by the shockwave, he immediately opened fire at the faintly visible shadow before him. His machine's carbine spat out 40-millimeter shells, which trailed streams of light as they disappeared into the smoke. 3 three-shot bursts. They had to have hit. Yet there was no sign of impact. The enemy machine showed itself, cutting through the smoke. It rushed him at high speed. It was a dark red AS with a slender yet strong silhouette, a V-shaped upper torso, and a diamond-like head. It looked like a Western-style AS, but Olmos had never seen a model like it in any catalog. Its elegant exterior belied the ominous power that seemed to lurk beneath. He waited to see what the machine would do. And bizarrely, what it did was laugh. The mocking sound of the pilot's voice rang out from the machine's external speakers.
You son of a bitch!
Almost roared and charged forward, suddenly enraged. He let fly from his grenade launcher straight at the enemy machine, close enough that he too could be caught up in the blast. Then he unloaded the rest of his rifle clip at the enemy's last known location.
That should show the bastard,
he thought. But a single moment later, out of the raging storm of flame and fragments, it emerged, slowly and completely unharmed.
even after all that. Oh no,
he moaned. The red machine turned to the stunned Olmos and said, "Out of ammo? I feel a chill. It's not good to be so wasteful." Olmos groaned in despair. "Incidentally, you're the last of the lot. I had a few who spent their last moments weeping and pleading, so I applaud your gumption, soldier boy."
shut the hell up!
Olmos yelled. His dark Bushnell tossed its spent rifle aside and pulled a small handgun from the hardpoint on its back. He took swift aim at the enemy machine's head and fired, but the bullets seemed to bounce off of the air itself, as if they had hit some invisible shield. Beyond the flying red sparks, he could see the red machine standing there, entirely nonplussed.
Hey,
Olmos whispered, panicking. The red AS raised an index finger and wagged it side to side. "None of that now. Let me show you how it's done. Ready?" The machine pointed its finger at Olmos, mimicking a gun. Then came a word. Bang! In that instant, the air around it warped. An invisible force burst from the red AS's fingertip and raced through the air. It wasn't a projectile. It was something unknown, a blast of some strange kind of energy. The whatever it was passed right through the dark Bushnell's armor, causing the machine's cockpit to explode with the operator inside. Almost died without even knowing what happened. The last dark Bushnell of the counterinsurgency, having lost its operator and control system, collapsed on the spot, never to move again. There wasn't a single scratch on its armor. When the last of the enemies had fled and the battle was officially over, he took a roll count. Of the 10 ASs he had serving under him, one was destroyed, and one had lost its left arm. Losses from infantry and others totaled 6 dead and 10 wounded. Not insignificant, but considering that they'd gone up against one of the strongest military entities in the world, it had to be considered an excellent showing. After all, in turn, they had taken out 12 of the enemy's ASs, destroyed half of their helicopters and attack craft, and forced them to leave at least 24 bodies on the beach. Those men would never make it home again, the poor things. Ah, stars and stripes forever. Let's see now. He walked his own AS to the base's chemical weapons repository. Chunks of wall here and there had been taken out by stray shots. It was a sight that would cause anyone who knew the site's function to turn pale with fright. Not him, though. He simply squatted his machine down into its disembarking pose, then descended from the cockpit to the ground. He was getting the hang of the artificial leg these last couple of weeks. He looked up at the red AS, which seemed to be resting after a satisfying day of slaughter. It was called the Kodarl Eye, and known among his organization as Plan 1058. It was an upgrade to the far more flawed Plan 1056, which he had lost 4 months ago, along with his right leg, in the mountains of North Korea. But if I'd had this one then... A dark smile appeared on his face as he thought back on that battle. On his fight with Mithril's white AS.
Gowron,
Someone called his name. A man was walking toward him. He was around 30 years old, large and burly, with a boxer's frame. He had one of those ambiguous ethnicities, a face that could just as easily be Latino as it could East Asian. There was a sleepy cast to his eyes, but at the same time his carriage suggested a man who wasn't fazed by anything. His most distinguishing characteristic, though, were the small round glasses that sat perched atop his round nose. "Karama," Gowron said, "I finished without you. Where have you been?"
I was on the radio with Mr. Zink.
The man named Karama answered bluntly. He seemed completely indifferent to the battle that had just gone down around him. Gowron hummed speculatively.
You were right, Karama said. They seem to be coming.
"Oh?" Gowron inquired.
Reports are that the submarine boarded the strike team en route,
Karama confirmed.
This isn't just recon. Apparently they want to take us on.
At this, Gowron grinned and let out a chuckle. "How kind of them. They latched right on to the bait."
Fairly extreme bait,
Karama said, surveying the carnage. The still burning ASs, the combat helicopters, the American soldiers' bodies littering the ground here and there. The news of the operation's failure would surely cause heads at the Pentagon to roll. "Of course it is," Gowron chuckled. "You know I love to make a scene."
I do know that.
Karama produced a cigarette case, withdrew a cigarette-sized carrot stick, and crunched down on it.
There's one more thing, he said. It's possible your favorite couple is on board.
"What did you say?" Gowron's attention sharpened.
We can't be sure ourselves, Karama said, but apparently they're no longer in Tokyo.
"Oh, well, well. Isn't that nice? Fantastic."
I'm not sure why you're so happy, Karama pointed out. If she dies with Mithril, we lose our whole objective.
Gowron chuckled again. "I know. Don't worry. I'll try hard not to let her die." He shook his head gleefully. There was a joy in his haggard features that couldn't possibly be healthy. He really was happy, though. This plan had called for him to do several things he disliked, and one was having to treat the boy and the girl as separate entities. But to think that circumstances would change to this degree. "Yes, yes, I'll be careful. I won't let her die. Then again," Gowron whispered. "Then again, what?" Kurama asked. "Accidents do happen, don't they?" And that is where I will leave y'all. That actually went longer than I thought it would. Um, that is where I will leave you all for this day, the day of the Mons. The Mons? I can't actually remember the etymological origin of Monday. Thursday I know is Thorsday, Thor's Day. Saturday, Saturn's Day, I think. I can't remember most of them actually. I take it all back. Tuesday is whatever it is. Not as infuriating as the Julian uh, calendar with September, October, and December being uh, oh, and November being 7, 8, 9, and 10 respectively, which is enough to drive anyone insane. When it's like, oh, but those are the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th month. As somebody once put it, man, I wish the I wish the guy who came up with that calendar got stabbed repeatedly. And it's like, well, funny you should say that. I shouldn't laugh about people being murdered. You know, dictators getting shanked to the death. But you know, we giggle because what's the old adage? Tragedy plus time equals comedy. Something like that. Anyway, That'll do it for Mecha Mondays of this week. I will get the playlist sorted out probably today, this afternoon. Um, Playlists, plural, sorted out, which does mean I'll have to make at least one new one, I think. Yes, because we started down below station. Yep. So I'll get that started as well. So for the rest of this week, we should still be on schedule for Wednesday and Friday. Wednesday, we'll be reading through more of Down Below Station by C.J. Cherry. The Woman, the Myth, the Legend. I should probably try to find time to see her at like a convention or something before she dies, because she's getting on in years, and I really respect the hell out of her work. And then on Friday, we'll be reading more of The Lazarus Effect by Bill Ransom and Frank Herbert. We are now most of the way done with that. How far along are we? Yeah, 2 more installments, including this week. So that's moving right along. Yep, that'll do it for me. I can't think of anything else intelligent to say. Oh, I was going to look up what a DEMON was for purposes of our good friends at Submarine Land. What are you? Let's do. Submarine jargon DEMON. Oh yeah, I really trust Jalopnik. No. No, 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 no. I cannot find anything immediately. What a DEMON would be. DAEMON would help if I spelled it correctly, but unfortunately that's going to throw me down even more complicated stuff because. No, no, nope, 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 nope. Nothing obvious, just demons in computing, which has really helped me out very much. Ah, well. I can't find it. If somebody who is more familiar with nautical terminology, specifically as it relates to submarines, and can figure out what a DAEMON with regards to that would be based on the context that was said in this book, that would be great. Otherwise, have a good one. I tried. Um, yep. Until next time, I will see you all later. Sorry, it was a shorter one this week. Toodaloo, stay safe, stay sane, and be decent to each other as per usual. Yep, I might be getting upwards of 6 inches of snow for no reason. So that's good. And yesterday was in like the 60s, so I'm not suffering from whiplash. No, sir. No, sir. Good times. Alrighty, toodaloo.